Welcome to Flying Upstream, the podcast where we uncover the choices, practices, and wisdom that defy mainstream conventions. I'm Kristen.
And I'm Louisa. And together we're here to illuminate the alternative paths that have shaped human experiences through the ages. In each episode, we'll examine ways to move beyond societal norms. We're passionate about how timeless wisdom and unique lifestyle choices can foster healthier, sustainable, and enriching lives.
Join us as we navigate, challenge, and celebrate the beauty and insight of walking the road less traveled. If you've ever felt like you're flying north for the winter while everyone else is flying south, you found your flock.
Another episode of the Flying Upstream podcast, where we explore the extraordinary journeys of unconventional individuals.
Today we're joined by the inspiring Amy Mandelj. Amy is a multifaceted entrepreneur and advocate for neurodiversity. Despite facing numerous health challenges, they have built a thriving business and are dedicated to helping others. We'll delve into the personal journey discussing experiences with neurodiversity, chronic illness, and the power of self-employment. We'll also explore their entrepreneurial ventures, including their successful VA and coaching business, and their support for their young budding entrepreneur. Get ready to be inspired as we uncover the secrets to living a fulfilling life, even in the face of adversity. Amy, welcome to the Flying Upstream podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I want to start with the last thing that Kristen mentioned, because I think that is the most unconventional part of all of this, and the most beautiful part of all this is one of the things we know about you is you mentioned helping your own child with their own entrepreneurial journey.
Yes.
Can you talk to us about that? How does something like that start? How do you support them?
So it all started around COVID. I'm classed as clinically vulnerable, or was in the eyes of COVID. So in the UK, Tyler and I had to shield for 7 or 8 months. And in that time, I was still working. I was working 40 hours a week. I was homeschooling him. He was 8 at the time. And I'm not going to lie, things were really tough. And I remember a challenge popped up on Facebook, like they do, the free challenges with coaches. And it was start a business in 5 days. And I was like, well, I've got my admin business, but I haven't really done anything with it. So I'm going to use the challenge to do that. And Tyler kind of tapped me on the shoulder and was like, I want to spread love and positivity with the world. I want to help people that are in our position, who are on their own, shielding. And he came up, I don't think I've got one with me. He came up with a concept of creating jars about this big. And he came up with 8 affirmations to put on them. And we were able to work together to put the crystals that linked with the affirmations, and also the dried flowers or herbs that went in as well, that all linked with the to propel it forward and make it more likely to become true. And that's how it all started, really. He wanted to call the business A Little Bit of Sparkle. I always future-proof things. I like to know if there's any other companies out there called the same name, for when you make millions and you need to be limited. You can only have one company with that name. And I looked on Companies House, and there was already a little bit of sparkle down in London, I think, a clothes shop. So we had to rethink, and Tyler was £5.12 when he was born. He was born a week overdue, and he was always nicknamed Tinchy. So a tinchy bit of sparkle was born, really. I remember my coach at the time saying to do Christmas fairs and challenge me out of my comfort zone. Obviously, he's now 12, he turns 13 very soon. So we were like, well, we can't go to a fair with 8 little jars on his table in front of us. So we used the knowledge that we'd learned through the research into crystals. We've both always liked stones and crystals anyway, but not really done the in-depth looking into their meanings and whatnot. So we both deep dived and ended up with a hell of a lot of crystals in our house. And that's how it all came about. I mean, he's sat next to me playing on his phone at the minute. But yeah, that's how it all started.
I love
Run-
that. I so appreciate that you are helping your own child have that entrepreneurial spirit. And
Yeah.
I'm curious to what your own journey to being an entrepreneur was.
So I've always worked, I've always grown up in the concept of needing to be employed. It's obviously guaranteed income. And originally, I'd been in a job for over 10 years. My primary illness started in that time. I had Tyler in that time. And I then got made redundant. So I'd set up office admin solutions at the time. I hadn't done the future proofing at that point. And my mum hit me with the limiting belief of, but you're a single mum. You've got illnesses, you're disabled, you've got to keep a roof over your head. Being an entrepreneur isn't going to cut it. You're not going to be able to pay the bills. What are you going to do if you have a bad month? And it terrified me to the point of doing, I think it was over 30 interviews in a 2-week period. And in that time, I was faced with discrimination. I was told that I couldn't do an admin job because I couldn't walk upstairs, despite walking up the stairs to get to the interview. Yeah. Do you know when you can just feel the way people look at you? Because, I mean, I had a crutch. So straight away, rather than questioning if I'd broken my foot or anything like that, it was just assumed that I couldn't do the job. And through COVID, obviously the TikTok videos started coming out about ADHD, autism, and the awareness videos. And I remember one night doom scrolling, and Tyler kind of tapped me and was like, "Are they talking about you? You tick all of those boxes." And it got me wondering. So I've deep dived into that. And at the minute, I'm waiting for an assessment for both autism and ADHD. And so many things kind of fell into place. Like when I've been employed, any meetings that were going on in my head were about me. And I'd go home and I'd cry and I'd be like, what have I done wrong? Why am I going to get sacked? And it was literally my brain telling me all these things. It wasn't that the meetings were about me. So it was like, clearly, employment isn't for me. I'm coming home in tears. I need to do something that's going to benefit me. Being self-employed means that if I need to nap, I can nap. Obviously, you said about multiple conditions. I've got chronic pain, fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis. I'm about to go in for surgery for a gastric bypass to hopefully lose the weight and kind of control the conditions. Obviously, nothing's guaranteed, but the theory's always been being self-employed, I can work around me. So if I need to nap, I'll go nap. If I need to work through the night, I can work through the night. I can work with people all over the world. I've never been financially pushed, as in money's not a motivator for me. I'd rather help people, and that's the ethos across both businesses. Tyler and I will stand at markets and we'll talk people through what crystals will benefit their health. Equally with my admin business, I will donate time in order to help other people if they can't afford to get the help. So yeah, that's very much, I think I answered your question in that.
I think
I
you
went
definitely.
on, I'm sorry.
No, I think that was great. I think it's important for people to sort of hear and understand the thought process behind what got you to where you are, because
Yeah.
I do agree that as a single mom, the limiting beliefs that are built in from society themselves, never mind if it's something that you have directly, like in your own community, whether it's your friends, family, or whatever it is, it can be really hard to think, I can do this. And not only hard, but the mental push sometimes can seem impossible. The physical push, the working overnight, that can seem impossible for some people. It's like, how am I going to be able to do that? And the truth is, the way that I look at it is there's only way that I'm going to find out. There's only one way I'm going to know if I'm capable, and that is if I try.
Yeah.
If I try. If I don't try, then I can't say that it didn't work because I didn't even give it a chance. So I'd love to be able to understand what that has been like because, yes, it is beautiful to be able to, when you have your own schedule, when you run your own business, to be able to work around you. But as a single mom, because I think there's a lot of us out there who just tell ourselves that we can only work that W-2. What did it
Yeah.
take for you to kind of transition? Because if we're not wealthy and if we didn't have $100,000 what or a lot of money in the bank, what makes you or what allowed you really to make that transition? How did you plan from being a W-2 as a single mom to become a self-employed person?
It's an awkward one. So it did take a lot of planning and it took a lot of willpower. I needed to do a lot of work on my mindset to squash the
Mhm.
limiting beliefs that were there. So I have done a lot of personal development in that respect, but it did take planning. I was initially on sick from work whilst I was trying to work out what to do. And it all stemmed, the final kind of pushing point was when Tyler went back to school. He came home the first day and was like, Mum, I really like you being at home. I don't want you to go back to work. At which point I was like, done. Done. That's going to happen. That's the next mission. And I remember I'd been at the full-time job for 2 years on bonfire night. And the day after I handed in a sick note, I was like, I can't. I'm struggling to do 40 hours. I'm doing it because I have to, but I'm not sleeping. I wasn't eating right. I was trying to wear all the hats like you do as self-employed anyway, but I was getting none of the praise. I wasn't speaking to anyone at work. I was literally sat in my home office doing the work and getting no appreciation. So it Tyler came home and said that, and I was like, right, that's it. Handed in the sick note, and then they literally basically threatened to sack me on Christmas Eve. They wanted to have a meeting with me. And I was just like, no, I'm getting the union involved, and ended up getting paid out due to ill health. And in the time that I was on sick, I managed to get in touch with a couple of people, I found a client straight away that needed my help, approached her initially and was like, I will donate my time to help you build your business. Once you're in a position to pay me, that's fine. And it literally panned out. They ended my contract in the March and I started in the April getting paid. And that was from donating my time, making those connections. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't easy. And there was a lot of tears involved, kind of panicking. But I had the belief that I could do it. And I knew that Tyler didn't want to go back to nursery. They did like a wraparound, dropping him off at school and picking him up. I'd only ever been able to do that 2 times a week. When for the 2 years previous to COVID, I couldn't do it because I was full time. So I was getting dropped off at nursery at 7:30 on a morning and picked up at 6 o'clock at night. By which point we were both shattered and had go to bed. So we didn't have that relationship. So the business has created memories. We've been able to do crafts and things that have brought us closer together. Yeah, it makes me smile and it's something that I'm so passionate about. But as a single parent, you'd do anything for your kids. Most parents would do anything for the kids anyway, but even more so when there's just the two of you in the house, we bounce off each other.
That's really beautiful, Amy. I love that you are so tuned in to not only your own needs, but also your child's needs.
Yeah.
I think that's really beautiful. And considering the journey that you have been on, what do you think the future of work looks like for neurodiverse individuals? And how can we create more inclusive and accommodating workplaces?
So again, I think more companies need to do training regarding mental health and different conditions. I've actually built a membership which is currently in its beta launch phase for Black Friday, which is for people that can't afford a VA that are in business. It could be for mums that need help just having the accountability to do the housework. And essentially, we're going to have a Zoom every Monday where you can set your intentions and reflect on the previous week. And then we're going to have a co-working and body doubling session later in the week. So you're paying to literally put 3 hours in your calendar where you can do things for yourself. A lot of neurodiverse business owners like myself, the focus is all on the clients. I'll bend over backwards for any clients, like I bend over backwards for my son. I don't do it for myself. So, like, if you look at my socials, they're shocking, but I do other people's socials for them. So, it's for people that can't afford to have someone do it for them, but you're all going to be working together on a Zoom and you can get the work done. You can set the intention for the work you want to get done. So I think in terms of other businesses, being aware of their neurodiverse employees and checking in, because if they're being held accountable, if they've got deadlines, they're more likely to achieve what you're wanting them to achieve. Does that make sense? Sorry, my phone's going off.
It does. It does make sense. I also think that it brings up the topic of community, which is so important. The reason Kristen and I started this podcast is because we want to amplify people's voices. In essence, community is important, I think, in everything that we do. And it sounds like that's very clear to you based on the work that you do and the services that you currently offer and in the new membership that you've created. And I wonder, how has it played a role for you in terms of your own ability to build your own businesses? How has community essentially allowed you to do that and be able to grow that even as a single mother?
The support network that the community create is amazing. As soon as I found or realized that I was neurodiverse, everyone around me seemed to be neurodiverse too. And it was like I didn't create, but the universe created that tribe of people for me. And the ideas and having those people to springboard off, because we've all got creative minds. That's how I ended up in the book Beyond the Ordinary. And that's where I told my story about going from employment to self-employment. And there, I struggled leaving the house, yet I went to the book launch. And it was so surreal because I felt at home. I didn't feel under pressure. The ladies that I went with, we were all in the same position. We were all neurodiverse, being part of this book. And it just felt like finally people understand me. And the more that other people understand me, the more I can understand myself. So even like setting up co-working sessions with them, that's where the whole idea of the membership came from. And at the minute, I'm doing it for £25 a month. So it's like I think it's less than £3 per session for the year, which when you think of how much you'd pay for a VA and how much you're going to achieve just for being on a call with 10 other people, 20 other people. Yeah, knowing that I've got people that I can set my intentions with and they'll check in on me is unbelievable.
That's really great. I love that you've taken the initiative to help other people in that same way, really giving back. Amy, as we start to wind down here, first I want to thank you for being an amazing guest and sharing your story with us. And as we wind down, I'm curious to know, how has your spiritual practice influenced your business decisions and your overall well-being?
I think it's set that reminder for self-care. I've never been one to understand self-care. I always hear about people meditating, and I do meditate now. But at the time, I was like, if I meditate, I'm thinking about other things. My brain never stops.
Mm.
and I thought I was doing something wrong. So gauging that understanding that you can't do it wrong. There's no right or wrong. It's about gaining that time, breathing through and centering your thoughts. And through doing that, I've allowed myself and my intuition to come alive, and I can follow the path that kind of comes to me. I've got a running joke with Tyler. We collect giraffes. He's always had a giraffe. We call it Jeffrey, like the Toys R Us adverts, or what used to be the Toys R Us adverts. And I see the giraffe as like my spirit animal. And whenever I'm out and about, if I go to a meeting with a client, a giraffe will pop up out of nowhere. And it's like, okay, I'm on the right path. And if it doesn't and something doesn't sit right, it's very much listening to the intuition behind it. And if something doesn't sit right, chances are it's not for me, and I can move on and kind of know that I've tried. Does that make sense?
It does. It definitely does to me. And you're speaking my language. I'm a big believer in synchronicities. I am all about following my inner guidance, my intuition, and knowing that I'm being guided, that the universe, I'm here for a purpose. I have a plan. I think it's important for people to understand that it is the power that we have is to be co-creators of our own existence. We are here
Yes.
to co-create. What that means is that we have the power in this 3D physical world to create what we want it to be, what we want it to look like by listening to our
Yeah.
intuition. Amy,
And it's
you-
so important to stay positive as well. Being negative around things, you're attracting like for like. So if you're
yeah.
positive and you're putting positive out there, positive's going to come in.
Yeah, I totally agree. That is my language. And thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you for so
Thank
much for
you.
sharing your wisdom for us with us today. We will link everything that you've talked about, your services. They'll be in the show notes and in the YouTube description. And free spirits, thank you so much for joining us on this enlightening episode of Flying Upstream. Remember, the power to create a life that you love is within you. Embrace your creativity, trust your intuition, and live a life of purpose and passion. Until next time.
All right, free spirits, that's all the time we have for today on Flying Upstream.
We hope this episode sparked your curiosity and ignited a desire to explore the extraordinary paths less traveled.
Even when the current feels strong, a whole world of possibilities awaits.
We'll see you next time on the other side of mainstream.
So keep questioning, keep challenging, and most importantly, keep flying upstream.